Alright, Travis Winggood. So, during my run this morning, I got to the M section and so Metallica. And so, yes, I heard Creeping Death, which I told you about yesterday in one of my videos, of how the killing of the firstborn meant that the throne of Egypt was left empty, which meant that Moses was pleading to be the Pharaoh, saying, I'm the Pharaoh, look at what I can do. I know all the rituals. And so the story that's been handed down to us, even though they've made some entertaining movies with the Ten Commandments and the Prince of Egypt cartoon and Exodus Gods and Kings, which is more accurate than the Ten Commandments and the Prince of Egypt. But yeah, so it occurred to me also as I was listening to Metallica that Metallica are Democrats. They're like the most popular ever, better than the Beatles, bigger than Beatles. and and they're Democrat. They're not conservative. Because listen to their music, listen to the time frame when they come up with their songs. You know, they switched under Clinton. All their good stuff was when we were under a conservative government. And this has to do with Mormons, but there's a guy who keeps pushing the Mormons as Democrats agenda, and I'm not allowing his comments when he promotes the Church Clinton conspiracy, because it's debunked. It doesn't exist. It has to be discarded. Like I keep telling you guys, you're supposed to find the truth by developing theories. And if the theory cannot be replicated, you have to discard the theory and develop a new theory to keep trying again to find out what the truth is. There are too many people, even in science now, that are refusing to reject a theory when it's been proven not to be replicated, or that it can't be replicated. And so I did the case, Big Bang. We can't replicate it. Science can't replicate it. Why can't they replicate it? Because they say, we'll destroy the universe. Okay, then guess what? It's not a legitimate theory. You've got to discard it. And it's just so frustrating that our America has become dumb, literally dumb. And it's because people keep holding on to theories that are false. If you perpetuate and educate yourself with stupidity, you become dumb. And thus Mormons have become dumb. Mormons know the church is bad, the church is wrong, the church is corrupt. How do I know they know? I'm one of them. Born and raised Mormon, going on 50 years. I know all about how Mormons think. I had parents who were alt-right conservative. There's the connection. But yes, whichever government is in charge, the church will try to exert their pressure and bribery with their hundreds of billions to ensure the security, alt-right conservative platform, remember, of the church. That's why the church is not going to Trump to promote religious freedom. They're instead going to Vice President Pence. Why would they go to Pence for religious freedom? Pence really has no power. other than in the Senate, where he controls as the Senate pro tempe, whatever it's called. And so, why not go to Trump? Well, because they know Trump is corrupt. And when a person is corrupt, they get removed from office. The church is counting on Trump to be removed from office. And what happens when Trump is removed from office? Guess who becomes president? Not Nancy Pelosi, Pence. That's why the church is working with Pence. Because they know that they've got an in with Pence, because Pence is alt-right conservative, fundamentalist Christian, and wants to promote religious freedom. That's where Maria Butina, remember her? The Russian spy who's now a Russian hero? The prayer breakfast, the National Prayer Breakfast. I've identified Christofferson was the agent sent by the church to meet with the Russians at the National Prayer Breakfast. And once they made their deal with the Russians and got their money from the Russians, the $32 billion, by the way, then they sent the Relief Society to the prayer breakfast, because they no longer needed the prayer breakfast. They got what they wanted from the prayer breakfast. That's the connection. And so how did they make arrangements for the temple in Moscow? Guess who's the temple president, or who was? He was replaced this year. But from 16 to 19, the temple president for Ukraine, the Kiev temple in Ukraine. What a great cover. You get Russian agents, oligarchs, who you have to go through in order to build in Russia. You get them to come to Ukraine. They just happen to visit the temple. We'll give you a tour. Obviously, they're not going through for the rituals. The temple president was a real estate guy back here in the States. They knew exactly what they were doing, and they set things up according to the governmental powers that be to get what they wanted. That's why they're corrupt. And so let's talk about alt-right conservatism. We're not talking about whataboutism of Democrats. That's a fallacy. That shows you're stupid, remember? Alt-right conservatism, in their platform, is security. And so if you remember your Metallica songs, Master of Puppets are pulling your strings, twisting your mind as fast as your dreams. Metallica is so awesome. That's alt-right conservatism. Security is their platform. But security for we the people? Oh yay, I'm secure, like a snug blanket. Not too dissimilar, actually, because what does a blanket do? It's like wearing that mental health jacket. It keeps you secure, because you're a danger. And that's how alt-right conservatives see everyone else. The legislature in an alt-right government makes laws. They make a ton of laws for every single action, every single thought. They even would love pre-crime. The Minority Report with Tom Cruise. They're all about making a long list of laws. Why? For security. So that when somebody challenges their authority, their power, they can refer to one of their laws and say, oh, you violated this law, off you go to prison. Or a mental home. If you really haven't done any crime, and they need to just create a crime, but then they bypass your rights. Do you know what they do under alt-right conservatism? When you get arrested, they try to interrogate you to give up your Miranda rights. If you refuse to speak, or if you get a lawyer, they then put you in jail. If you're able to get a lawyer, you're able to make bail and get out. But the poor are not able to get out. The poor get locked up in jail for months. Why? Because if you're in there for a certain duration of time, it counts toward your hours. So they'll say, oh, well, you've been in here for months now, why don't you just plead guilty and we'll talk to the judge and see if we can get your time reduced. Oh, you guys are so nice. There were guys crying in jail while they tried to do that to me back in 2008. You know, they didn't do anything wrong, and so they were crying because they knew they were losing their jobs, they were losing their families, they were losing their property, all being held captive, being tortured to plead guilty. And once you plead guilty, you're on file. You have a record now. And they will use that against you to control your behavior. That's how they do it. The legislature makes a whole ton of laws. The executive enforce it. So all those cops, we need to be secure. We need to flood the streets with cops to protect you people who are a danger to us. That's why the cops, under alt-right conservatism, are the enemy of the people. Because they are enforcing the laws that protect the establishment, that protect the government, that protect those in power, in business, in religion. In Utah, it's the Mormon Church. And under alt-right conservatism, which is Utah, that's how it works. And so Operation Rio Grande, that's an alt-right conservatism designed specifically to exterminate the homeless. And so the church runs Utah. The church is alt-right conservatism. They're not Democrat. We only had one Democrat, George Albert Smith. All the rest have been Republican, alt-right Republican, as presidents of the church. There may have been apostles who have had Democrat tendencies, but they never made it into power. And thus, the church is involved in this $100 billion scam because it's for the church's security. You know, alt-right conservatism, security. Security for who? The Mormons? No, they're not giving in charity. Mormons are poor, except for the rich who are paying the tithing to the church. See, the church has lost 13 billion, or million, sorry. Got billion on the brain. 13 million of its claimed 16 million members in active membership. That's why the church still claims 16 million, because those people are still on record as having been baptized. They have not given the church their final notification saying, we want nothing to do with this corrupt church. Those people, like me, well, I was kicked out, but I wasn't excommunicated, kicked out. But I've seen it here in my ward. The membership secretary for our ward, he tried not coming to church, and as he got away with it time and time again, he finally decided, let's make the break, dear. And he and his young family made the break and locked themselves in their home so that when we came by to say, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? Are you okay? We want nothing to do with you guys. Okay, well, you have a daughter. She's 7 now. She'll be turning 8 soon. Get away. See, that's how bad it is. And and so alt-right conservatism dominates the church. So yes, when a Democrat president is in power, the church will try everything they can to smooge, whatever that word is, smooth the president to get what they want for their protection and security. And because of their multi-billions, they have other lobbying interests through other companies so that they can distance themselves as a religion and are still able to get what they want. Thus the tax laws. For example, Orrin Hatch. Who was in charge of that tax bill in 2017 for 2018? Orrin Hatch. He got in that huge popular fight that made the news with Senator Brown, where Senator Brown called him out and said, hey, no, this bill does not help the poor. And then Orrin Hatch gets all angry. I was poor. Yeah, right. This is for the poor. And then it turns out he lied. Oh, what a surprise. My God. See, Mormons know. See, Hatch knew. Mormons know. They have their children. They themselves paid tithing as children. That's a crime. You're not supposed to be involved in child labor or profit off of children. And yet, they still do it. You're baptized. You must pay, or you are unworthy. You are a sinner in the eyes of God, and you will not enter the temple for your rituals. Okay, I'll pay. Security. And so the church. They promote the family proclamation. What has the church done with it? They've used it to justify torturing and punishing single mothers. They used to have an adoption agency. The church did. And they used it to convince girls who were raped to have the baby, not get an abortion. They don't even mention it. They say, hey, don't you want this baby to grow up in a nice family with a mother and a daddy? Let alone that they're white Mormons. And so yes, the church is racist also. Yes, in 1978, they said, hey, we'll take money from black people too. Because that's what it meant. You can't get money from slaves, can you? So we can't have slaves in the church. We can't get anything from them. And they still had slaves, Brigham Young did. And so in Utah, the percentage of blacks are so small in percentage that blacks who show up at church get told about the Genesis group. And you think, oh, yay, they get to be with their own kind. And they don't stop and think, wait a minute, what did I just do? I just committed racism. I just committed segregationism. And so the Genesis group, which was formed before 1978, because for some reason they thought the church was true. Unbelievable. The Mormon Jesus is racist. Therefore, the church is true. That's what frustrates me about Kwaku, the Mormon apologist going to BYU right now. He just parrots the apologist lines. That's where he's getting it all from. It's all from the apologists, from back in the days when they were farms. Initially conceived of by John Welsh because he discovered the chiasmus plagiarism in the Book of Mormon. Mormons, come on, you know. What language was the Book of Mormon in? Egyptian. So what's Hebrew doing in there? Oh, but it's the learning of the Jews. No, it's not the language, it's the learning. Difference. Remember the Rosetta Stone? Learning of the Greeks. Language of the Egyptians. And so, yeah, Mormon apologists began with farms, where Daniel Peterson became one of the editors, sort of dominated the whole thing, as he was the one who gave me the letter saying, do not contact us ever again. And that's a fun story. I went to John Tibetness, who is one of the other of those early farms guys. He held a lecture at BYU on the Book of Abraham. So yeah, it was all because of a phone call I had with him where he said Joseph Smith was wrong. So I put him on the spot in front of all the Mormons in the audience, and it was overflow. They filled up the whole room. They had another room going on, and there I am trapping him, and he panicked and said, I didn't say that. I didn't ask here, did I? Gotcha. And so, yeah, they don't like me. They didn't like me. They're no longer in existence. Because Hinckley disbanded farms and merged it with the Hinckley Institute. And so, yeah, John Gee was also a part of it. He wrote me a bad letter. Bad on multiple levels, because he wrote it in many different Egyptian styles. And how do I know that? Because I identified the different styles in order to translate it. Dumbass. And so, yeah, that's where Kwaku is getting all his stuff from, is from what those guys originated in the church, and have been able to perpetuate through the minds of the Mormons. Thus, Mormons are dumb, because of those guys. See, before the apologists emerged in the church was just involved in a cover-up scheme, as Joseph Fielding Smith Jr. and Boyd K. Packer, those guys were among the ones who were in the early 1900s working on covering up church history. And that's what gave rise to the September 6th. So, yeah, when you protect yourself, you build up walls to keep people out who are undesirable for you, but also to enslave and hold hostage those who are already within. And if you don't serve a purpose, like if slavery is no longer allowed, then those slaves are not having any money to give you, so get rid of them. The homeless, they're not paying taxes, get rid of them. That's for the security of the state of Utah. That's the mindset of the Mormon Church. That's the mindset of the Mormon government. That's alt-right conservatism. That inhumanity is the danger that we face as a nation right now under Trump. And the church is loving it. Because if Trump flourishes and survives, the church will continue to survive. And they don't really need Pence, because Pence is doing this underground religious freedom thing anyway. And so that's why I keep warning you guys. And that's the danger America faces. That is the terrorist threat to America, is the Mormon Church and alt-right conservatism. Because under Trump, white supremacist violence has skyrocketed. And the church is playing a big part of that, as Desnat on Twitter emerged. Oh, we're just wanting people to follow the prophet. Yeah, by telling people that they're going to be forced. Mormons, whose plan of happiness was it to take away agency? Yeah, exactly. And where is that plan of Lucifer's? Come on, Mormons, it's scripture mastery. All of you should have it memorized. You should know exactly where it is in your scriptures, with the scripture chase you guys do. And I did. I was pretty good at it. I don't memorize, though. Moses, chapter 4, verses 1 through 4. Taking away agency. How do you take away agency? A whole list of laws and commandments. Just like alt-right conservative government. We need a law. Trump didn't violate the law. See, that's how they manipulate the laws. When they are guilty of crime, because there's only 3 areas of crime. Violations of life, violations of liberty, violations of property. That's it. It's that simple. Constitution's great, isn't it? Not under alt-right conservatism. And again, we're not doing whataboutism with Democrats, because there's a whole thing on Democrats that I could talk about. But right now, it's alt-right conservatism, because that's what the church is, that's what our government is. And so yes, alt-right conservatives worship the devil. Shout at the devil! Both their songs are good, Motley Crue. The first one, though, it has the "in the beginning." I did have that memorized. Because it contains music. So you see, Mormons, you know. You have a whole list of commandments. And Mormon women are the most depressed people on the face of the planet, because of the stats that they're the ones who take the most depression medication. And why? Because Mormon women think they have to be perfect. What is their interpretation of being perfect? Being able to follow and complete a whole list of commandments. I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do this, I have to do this, and I have to do this by then. And that stresses people out. That's why Lucifer's plan is a failure. Because not only does it take people away from other people, because how are you going to know what laws to follow unless you actually spend your time day after day studying the law? You ever seen Utah's law books? Let alone the United States' law books. To study the law, the government law, would take away your life. And so the church, the leaders come out in conference and throw out a law here, throw out a law there. And not just from the president of the church, all the other apostles, 70s, stake presidents, bishops, they all throw out laws. And so Mormons get confused. And then you have Elder Oak, or President Oaks now, talking in the last conference, saying all the prophets collectively. Oh my God. Mr. Alt-Right Nazi conservatism himself. I'm the one who caught him doing the Seek Heil to the the Priesthood. I think it was the Aaronic Priesthood brethren who were singing in the choir, and that's why he was saluting them. But he saluted them with the Seek Heil, and I made that go viral. And the next day, I watched on the live session, he almost did it to the audience. He was bringing up his arm in the salute, and then something in his head told him, don't do it, don't do it. Somebody exposed you yesterday. And he didn't do it, and he did a little wave thing down here. And so I did the video, gotcha. So, yeah, that's why Mormon and swastika and Mormonism. What is the book again? Yeah, it's that red book. It's 2/3 down. But I can't pause the video now, because when I pause the video messes up with the lip to mouth, because I adjust the lip to mouth at the beginning. So, and I'm already at 30 minutes. So I hope you understand now, guys. If you're critics of the church, now you know why the Mormons are corrupt. It's alt-right conservatism. So those of you who are not Mormon, who are anti-Mormon, but pro-Trump, I hope you now see, if you're pro-Trump, you also have to be pro-Mormon. Because they're your kind. That's why Russia loves the church. So, I think I've said it all. Got it off my chest. This is the family I grew up in. This is the church I've grown up in. And when I moved to Utah, everything just like, oh my God. You know, it was bad enough going to the temple in 1989 and being forced in this temple ceremony to covenant that I'm going to kill myself for violations of Lucifer's covenants. I already explained to you what the difference is. It's the taking away of agency. And the alt-right conservatives love to play the dichotomy game with us. Oh, you don't want a wall? Then you are wanting an open border to allow criminals in. No! There's more than two ways for a solution. But that's the game they play. they demonize the alternative and only allow one alternative, and therefore thinking they are convincing you, again, making you stupid into saying you have to follow our way will protect you. And it's a trap, because it's a lie. They want you a slave, they want you held captive, they want you paying them. I could go on and on, talking all about alt-right conservatives and applying it to the church. Because we can go back to World War II, we can go back to Lorenzo Snow, we can go back to Brigham Young, the primary cause, and how he ordered the murder of Joseph Smith by putting his two guys, Willard Richards and John Taylor. Look them up, section 124 of the Doctrine and Covenants. Which quorum were they a part of? They weren't there because they were arrested, so what the hell are they doing there? So there you have it. Alrighty. 37 minutes. Oh goodness. Did anybody stay the distance? Are you terrified yet? You should be.